Thank you. Good morning.
Now, the South African National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, it's been released, as we say, as a repeated population health survey in order to basically address the changing health needs in the country. Is it the first study of its kind in the country?
Well, yes, it is the first study, a survey, and it's unique in the sense that it combines questionnaire-based information, which is then supported by a clinical examination that was conducted by a doctor, and a number of other investigations like blood lipids, blood sugar, body weight, body height, and a nurse took a blood sample from all participants where we measured a number of biomarkers in relation to establishing baseline values for future monitoring of our progress in the health domain in the defined topics that we covered in this survey.
All right, now the study, as we said, focused on health and nutrition. What for you were the biggest findings?
Well, quite a number of them. Perhaps the most striking one is the dietary habits, together with abnormal values of lipids in the blood and blood sugar, together with rather disappointing levels of inactivity or lack of fitness, which all, of course, are risk factors for the development of what we call non-communicable diseases, which are on the rise the world over, and South Africa is not an exception.
Yeah,
particularly, you mentioned earlier on the issue of obesity. It is a serious issue, and we will start, or have already started, addressing it in the way possible. But it's going to take time, and it's going to be a difficult issue to address because there are so many different issues, including also the individual. We have to take charge a little bit better than what we have been doing so far.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite frightening about the fact from the survey, and I think what most newspapers are leading with this morning, and a lot of people are talking about it, is the fact that 2/3 of South African women, according to your study, are either overweight or obese. Why particularly women?
Well, there are a number of reasons. The results are not really so surprising in the sense that we knew since 2003 that circumferences are rather on the large side. And this study, 10 years later, actually confirms previous findings of the high prevalence and indeed confirms the increase that has taken place over the last years. And as for the reason why more women, that is something that we will have to go into, but I think from basic principles, when you have that type of a situation, it's accumulation of fat in the body, and there is only one way that fat accumulates. The energy balance is not what it should be.
Yeah.
There is overeating, probably of the wrong foods, or most definitely of the wrong foods. And as such, these are part of the issues that we will address.
Yeah. I think one of the other very, disturbing things out of the survey is about preschoolers, that South African children are amongst the fattest in the world. What happened there? I mean, this is just, it's very frightening.
Yeah. I'm not sure that they're the fastest in the world, but it's pretty close. And for that, we have to understand that we have a very complex and interesting environment. The other paradox that is reported in the press today is the hunger or the lack of food security and at the same time the presence of obesity. Now these are interesting phenomena that we are only beginning to understand, and in relation to the context of being obese and yet not having enough food, lies, or at least part of it lies in two major issues. The one is the lack of dietary variety. We are relying on one or two food groups to take all our nutrients in terms of requirements. And the second and more complex one is the fact that we do have, as a country, a stubborn problem of poor height growth early in the age of a child.
Yeah.
Now, that is known to be associated, not in South Africa, all over the world, in developing countries and so forth. There are different data sets that indicate the risk of that stunted child of becoming obese can be anything up to 7-10 times higher when that child reaches adulthood, which is one of the reasons why one of the recommendations we have made is to actually address stunting as an urgent priority in the country, and particularly take measures to ensure that the first 1,000 days of a child's life are actually are in an environment that is conducive to prevent stunting.
All right, Professor, thank you very much for talking to us. I know that there is so much more to talk about when it comes to the survey. I've just got hordes of paper here in front of me, just talking about it, the prevalence of diabetes, hypertension. But I suppose the only good thing to come out of it that I'm reading here is that smoking and tobacco use has decreased since 1993. So that is something good.
Yeah.
Professor, thank you. Thanks for joining us here on Morning Live. Professor Dimitri Labadarios is the Executive Director of the HSRC Population Health Survey that has just been released here in South Africa for the very